Yes, so the World Bank has worked on gas flaring reduction for over 2 decades now. So we have a lot of experience and a heritage in understanding what it takes to reduce flaring. Flaring, of course, is closely related to methane, and now we will also expand our work program to include fugitive methane emissions. And the way we'd like to do that at the World Bank is particularly focused on developing countries, emerging economies, these governments and state-owned entities that have the least resources, capacity, knowledge to address the issue. This is where the World Bank will intervene and support the government and the state-owned entity or national oil company. And there are two parts to the support that we will provide for methane and flaring reduction. One is on the technical assistance side, where we will help advise governments and state-owned entities on regulatory and policy issues, what works, what doesn't, what are the incentives, what is the enabling environment that you have to create within the country to make gas flaring and methane reduction far more conducive and viable. Technical assistance can also focus on capacity building, best practice, knowledge sharing, looking at various technologies for methane and flaring detection, quantification. All of that we will continue to support. However, the second part of our support will also be focused on the financing. And now GFMR, or the Global Flaring and Methane Reduction Partnership at the World Bank, will focus on providing grants to state-owned entities, national oil companies, governments, hoping to catalyze the actual emissions and flaring reduction projects. And by providing the grant funding, we hope to build a coalition of banks, concessional financiers, commercial financiers to recognize that this is an opportunity and to give the investors confidence that this is something that is viable and will yield some results in the future. So there are numerous barriers still that exist, but they seem to be slowly falling over time. The biggest barrier is now something that is less a barrier than it was before, and that is the technology detection that's out there right now. So there's been a dramatic improvement over the last several years on the detection technology to look at where the methane plumes are. Now, quantification still is a barrier, yeah? So while we can detect the methane, the quantifying it is somewhat of a barrier still. So you have to deploy a lot of different technologies to really get the quantification aspects right and to verify that quantification. Without that, it's also hard to find the financing to come in, because if you can't measure something with accuracy, you can't quantify it with accuracy, then the financing is also a challenge. This is similar to the gas flaring issue, right? Gas flaring, you have small volume flares, they are dispersed, and so it's hard to quantify and see what the opportunity is from an economic perspective there. So these are the challenges. There's also the regulatory barriers. In many countries in the developing world, you see that they have either no regulation or policy enabling environment, or very old, needs to be refreshed and needs to address today's context and the opportunities that presents itself today. So the regulation and policy also is a barrier in many countries. That needs to be a foundational piece of work that needs to be done before you can sometimes find the projects to be economical and viable as well. So just last week, we released a report with the ASEAN Center for Energy and ASCOP. And this report was designed to understand what the methane situation is in this region. And the report was quite revealing, yeah? If you look at some key highlights from the report, one is that it estimates that around 80+% of all methane mitigation projects could be done at negative net cost here. So it doesn't even cost any money to do this. So huge opportunity, 80% plus. So 8 out of every 10 projects potentially could provide a return. So that's one learning. The second learning is that the number, the economic number is huge. So if you were to look at the total emissions from the region, the ASEAN region, talking about 300,000 tons annually. If you were to put a dollar sign to that, you're talking about $87-90 million economically lost every year through methane, fugitive methane emissions in the oil and gas sector. So a tremendous economic opportunity. Now, these are estimates, but at least it gives you a sense of the opportunity and the magnitude of the problem. And, this is something that we're happy to see, and why we're here in Japan at this conference is because we understand this region is really doing some good work. They understand the opportunity that is presented through mitigating methane and flaring, and they are now doing things, including developing policies, regulatory frameworks. They're doing the leak detection and repair campaigns. We hope to do this in Indonesia. We hope to do it in other parts of the world as well. So.